Okay, welcome to Unit 6. We're starting obviously with 6.1. You should have your guided notes or be writing on a notebook, and let's get started. So the beginning of this unit is all about exploring polynomials. We've done this already a little bit, mostly with quadratics, but now we're going to be talking about polynomials in general. So let's just make sure we all know what a polynomial is. So a polynomial is an expression that can have constants, variables, and exponents. Right? So we're very familiar with polynomials, but we're just going to kind of reiterate and make sure that we all kind of have the same understanding. So with polynomials, there are many different ways that we can write the equation or the expression. So one way that we can do that is by writing it in standard form. And the other way to do that is by writing it in factored form, right? So these are just two different forms that mean the same thing. So you could have something in standard form and factored form, and they could have the same graph. It's just saying the same thing in two different ways. So an example of something in standard form is like if we have this equation, y equals negative 4x to the third plus 2x squared plus 6. And if we have stuff in standard form, we actually have a number of things that we can find. So the first thing that we can easily find is what we call the degree. And the degree is the highest exponent. So in this case, my degree is 3. So the degree is 3, or sometimes we would call it a third degree polynomial. Okay, so again, degree is the highest exponent. We're going to skip down to leading term. So leading term is the term that has the degree. So remember, polynomials are just made up of terms, right? In this case, we have 3 terms. So the leading term is the term that has the degree. So in this case, our leading term is this term. If it's written in standard form from highest to lowest exponent, it'll always be the first term, right? But again, it's just the term with the highest exponent. And then we can break it down even further, and we can talk about the leading coefficient. So the leading coefficient is the coefficient, right? Coefficient is just number. So the coefficient connected to the degree. So in this case, right, the coefficient connected to this degree of 3 is this negative 4. So our leading coefficient is just negative 4. It is the coefficient in the leading term, okay? We then can find the constant, right? We should know how to find the constant. Another way to call the constant, by the way, is the y-intercept. We're going to use it interchangeably. So sometimes you will see y-intercept and sometimes you will see constant. And the constant is just the number without a variable. Okay, so in this case, our constant is positive 6, right? Because that 6 doesn't have a variable. The other thing that is not written in the notes, but we can also define the polynomial by the number of terms. In this case, we just talked about it. There's 3 terms, right? Anytime you see a plus or minus, that splits up a term. So this has 3 terms. Okay, so as you can see, right, in the standard form, there's lots of things that we can actually define. Now, in factored form, there are some things that are the same and some things that are different. So factored form means we have the parentheses, right? So we could have something like this, x minus 3 squared times x plus 7, right? So we can still find the degree, but it's a little bit different. So to find the degree when it's in factored form, we add the exponents of the factors. So remember, we have x minus 3 squared times x plus 7, right? This x plus 7 technically has an invisible 1. So if we add the exponents, 2 plus 1 gives us 3. That is our degree, okay? We also know how to find the zeros, right? We've talked about this many times at this point. The zeros, also known as the x-intercept, is when we set each factor or each parentheses equal to 0. And then you solve for x, right? A lot of us know that shortcut already, and that's okay. Another thing that we can find is if the leading term is positive or negative. The easiest way to do this, there's a few ways to do this. So I'm going to rewrite the equation. So y equals x minus 3 squared, x plus 7. So one way to kind of think about this is like, easy way is just see if there's a negative sign in the front. If there's no negative sign, that means it's positive. Another way to think of this is just saying x minus 3 is happening twice, and then we have x plus 7. So if we multiply x, these first terms, x times x times x, we get x to the third, and that is positive. So in this case, it's going to be positive. And then actually also with the factored form, we can still find the y-intercept. So the way that we find the y-intercept is, again, let me write out the equation. So we have x minus 3 squared times x plus 7. Remember, this means x minus 3 twice. So x minus 3 times x plus 7. To find the constant, we just multiply these like constant terms in each factor. So -3 times 7. If you put it in your calculator, you're going to get the constant or the y-intercept of 63. So this is your y-intercept / the constant. So go to the practice where you're going to be talking about identifying key parts in a polynomial.